Television news is a competitive, cutthroat, and pretty cynical business overall. On tonight's State of Independence, I'll ask an award-winning television executive and a new member of the Lighthouse TV family if that characterization is an exaggeration or just about right. It's a conversation you won't want to miss. Stay with us. My special guest tonight has a career in television news that began when Ronald Reagan was president. And this year, he was recently inducted into the Pennsylvania Association of Broadcasting Hall of Fame. That's how awesome he is. He's been a photojournalist, that's the guy behind the camera, managed news operations, and done just about every job on the journey from a tip to live, daily news broadcast. Today, he's Lighthouse TV's general manager, overseeing the construction of our brand new Harrisburg studio and the launch of our live daily morning program, Morning Light. But with shelves full of awards and plenty of leadership nameplates on the door and a yet unwritten book of adventures, his life is ordered around his faith, his marriage, his children, and an industry reputation for personal integrity. It's a privilege to welcome Keith Blaisdell to State of Independence. So let me start with the big one. How does a Christian wind up in the tough, cynical world of TV news?
Well, it's an amazing journey. I was born in Massachusetts.
Where?
I was born in Boston.
Wow.
And my parents were from that area, from New England, good solid New Englanders, and we moved to Connecticut, and I grew up there.
Christian family, or?
Yeah, so they were Christians. They were religious initially, but probably around the time I was 7 or 8 years old, they had a personal experience, a saving experience with Jesus Christ. And I remember as a child seeing them get baptized by immersion.
Wow.
As a young boy. And
how did that affect you?
It definitely had me say, gee, there must be something more here. I wanted to learn more over time. And I have a sister, and we both were raised in a solid home, but we ultimately made decisions to follow Jesus. And for me, that story really centers around 1970, and we went to a Billy Graham crusade at Shea Stadium in New York, and I was a 10-year-old kid and listened to this message, and I remember Billy Graham saying, the decision you make today will determine the course of the rest of your life.
Wow. And
I'll never forget that. And I made a decision, and I still get a little emotional when I hear Just As I Am played. Yeah. Because that was, for years.
Did you come down from the stands?
I did. Made my way down to the stands. I remember Billy Graham always saying, don't worry, if you came by bus, they'll wait, that sort of thing. Yeah. And they did. And I accepted Christ, and that began a journey. And I had 2 loving parents that were very supportive of me getting into, as you described it, a media business. And they're like, we're not sure about that, but they wanted to support me in whatever I did.
Is that something you wanted to do? I mean, what was it that got you interested in the media business?
I lived in Connecticut, and the school district was very able to support programs, and we had a television studio in our high school, and we produced programs, way before its time. And I just fell in love with it's interesting, television is both a technical profession in terms of that, but it's also a creative. Yeah. And my most recent boss, before I was at Lighthouse, calls me a bilingual. I can be technical, but I can also be editorial. So it combined both elements, and I found that fascinating.
Yeah. So you knew that's what you wanted to do with your life?
I did. Yeah, pretty early on.
In college, or?
Yeah, I went to Messiah.
Yeah.
In Pennsylvania. Messiah. It's now Messiah University, and they didn't have a full communication major there, and you had to come and spend 2 years in Philadelphia at Temple. They had a joint program, and I just loved Messiah so much. I'm like, boy, I'd like to stay here. And I guess I just got the spunk, and I, with the Lord's help, I helped develop a communication major program. And I was in the first communication graduating class at Messiah.
Wow.
Yeah, and I've consulted with them on building TV studios since. So
that is so cool.
Yeah.
And then right after college, did you head right into the industry?
I did. I actually had an internship at WHTM, the ABC affiliate in Harrisburg. And I had an internship. I graduated. I got married the next month. I went on my honeymoon, and the station called me when I was back from my honeymoon. I was still technically supposed to be off and needed me to come in. So that was probably a bad sign when I did, right? But my wife was very supportive, and I worked. And by the end, I was part-time. So here I am. I'm a newlywed. We have nothing between us, and I took a part-time job, and eventually by the end of the year, it turned into a full-time. And I stayed there for, in essence, with a short diversion into a engineering career, doing a couple things. I stayed there for 42 years.
42 years.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Never any desire to be in front of the camera?
No, I think I enjoyed so much of the creative, especially in the early years, the photographic aspect with the artistic aspect. I was a photographer, then a chief photographer, then a news operations manager, which really got me into management and logistics and working with people. And I just think that relationships with people are so important. It's how you get great things out of teams of people. So I stayed in that vein. I became an assistant news director and then a news director ultimately. And then I left for a few years and kind of got a graduate degree, so to speak, in engineering. And it served me well. I went back and then did a director of engineering and chief engineer at that TV station for another 12 years.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Wow.
And now I'm just thrilled to be with Lighthouse.
It's a blessing to have you.
Yeah.
But how many, so if you had to guess, like how many born-again people are there, in TV news?
It's not a
TV
big
news?
number,
Yeah.
but there are some. It's not a huge number. I think maybe a little less than some industries, for sure. People that are in media and are taught very much to question everything and to question authority, and that we're going to make our own way and so forth. So I think it doesn't always attract people of faith, but I have some lovely colleagues that have a strong faith. And I think the most fascinating thing is that for me, journalism and that aspect of the business was a calling at that time in my life. I today still am blessed by the relationships, and really I think it's so much about storytelling in a lot of way, in many ways. Christ taught us in parables, great stories that stick with us, and everyone has a story. And so the early years, I could tell those stories. I could photograph them. Sometimes I do them with a reporter. Sometimes I just do them natural sound without a reporter. But just being able to tell people's stories and listen to them, I think that taught me a lot.
Yeah, that's a wonderful thing to be able to do, to be able to tell a story. And that's part of what I love about television as well, and being a host is the show is not about me, it's about our guest and their story,
right.
The story of our guest, and learning what they went through and the decisions they made, how they got where they are. And that for me is the exciting part. I wonder, did you have any trepidation at all? I mean, when you consider the fact that it's a hard business. I mean, people are well compensated for what they do, but you can be axed, AXED,
right?
You could be cut in a nanosecond, and without any warning, and because it's so competitive. I mean, at the end of the day, what really matters, I think, for a lot of networks are numbers. And they aren't really so concerned about, oh, so-and-so's your friend or,
right. I think my parents, I remember them dearly saying, they're like, do you really want to get into, that's a jungle, that business, it's very tough. It's very, and it is. But one thing I learned, that you should never be afraid to take a stand, and you should stand up for what's right. And I always had the respect both of believers and non-believers that I worked with. They knew that if I was asked to do something, I was going to give 100%, and that I was going to try to do the very best I could. And I think that comes from Scripture. That's our responsibility, to represent the highest ideal. I think work is part of the foundation of how we're created, and you never retire from the kingdom, right? And you work hard to make sure that you represent. I always wanted to represent a person of faith well, and I never ran into a problem there. And I think the key was, trying to do it with love. We would disagree sometimes on certain issues, but you would love the person, and maybe you didn't love their opinion or what they were espousing, but you tried to find a common spot of dialogue. And part of that was just trying to care about people and understanding what their problems are and their backgrounds, and then that's a good starting point, I think.
Yeah. You have a wonderful way about you, and I think it makes guests feel comfortable as well. To people that come on the TV ostensibly want to tell their story, but oftentimes they may not do it so well in front of a camera. The camera's on and suddenly it's like a deer in the headlights.
Just a conversation.
Right? But I think for the most part, you help the guests to really be comfortable and to realize that it's, you just tell your story, share the good news of what God has done in your life. I love Morning Light, by the way. I think it's wonderful. I love it. The only thing I wish you could change is make it longer. So I know
we're working on that. So stay tuned. But
Yeah.
we'd like to see that program go in the very near future to an hour.
Yeah, that'd be a blessing.
And we think we've got some great plans on how to do that.
Yeah.
If someone hasn't seen Morning Light, I would love to encourage them to check it out. Right now it's airing live at 9 in the morning from our new Harrisburg studio, and then we re-air at 2:30 and we re-air at 7. It's been a very, very exciting project to really reinvent a morning program that truly helps people face the day with faith and to be positive, encouraging, or as Lighthouse TV, we say positively different. We're very different. We live in a media environment that constantly focuses on tension and stress and, quite frankly, scaring people, right? And that's across the board. That's any digital page. If you watch any television, it's breaking news every night. Any type of media that's consumed, it's really selling that commercially. They're trying to really, in a sense, strike fear, because that motivates people to pay attention and think that they're going to miss something if they don't watch or whatnot. And I think that's largely also driven by the fact that today's social media is driven by algorithms that say, if you see this and you like this, we're going to give you more of that, right? I think what we try to do at Morning Light, and I think we try to do this across great programs on Lighthouse TV, right here on State of Independence, and our other programs, we try to take that heat off and give you some light, not just the heat, and talk about issues and the way that Christians can respond to those issues in this troubled world. I mean, ultimately, we know that it's only Jesus that has an answer, right? He's the only answer. And I wanted to share one thing that makes me think of that. For me, Isaiah 41:10 is very important. It says, "Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous hand." I think in this world today, fear tries to win. But ultimately, we know how the end of the story is, right? We know how it's written. And ultimately, Jesus Christ can alleviate us of those fears because he's already done the work and he's already been there. So I think that's what we try to do with Morning Light. We have interesting people on. Sometimes we have people on that you would think, ooh, are they going to have that person on? Are they what I would expect? Mainstream. And yet we try to look for the common ground that we can share in Christ. So I think it's a fascinating time.
Yeah, it is a fascinating
and a great opportunity for people. By the way, I have to say, if you're watching us today, you may be watching us on TV, but the app is really important too. You can watch us on the go. You can see us anywhere, anytime.
Right. What's been the hardest thing for you as a Christian person in this business?
Sometimes seeing the hopelessness that people have in their minds when they don't know Christ and when they don't have that faith. And, you want to be able to reach out and touch everyone. And sometimes we just don't have the physical ability to do that. I think we have an amazing opportunity with Lighthouse. When I was a kid, my mother and I would watch the 700 Club together when I was a teen, and I remember giving some money so that they could build at that time the broadcast center that they have. And it was just an amazing way that God has given us technology to reach people with the saving message of Jesus Christ and grace. And that's just something that continues today for me as a passion. I also think that we don't need to worry about the technology. God provides that technology. We're in the Christian content business. Ultimately, we want to create great Christian content, and there's such a void of that. The world doesn't understand that. But yet, if we stand firm, it's amazing how people sometimes will say, well, that was a good discussion. We have certain viewers, for example, on Morning Light, because I'm connected with that on a daily basis, that we know that there's a few of them that aren't believers, but they communicate, say, I really liked that show. I liked what you said about that. And they're learning and growing, and I think that faith conversion is a process. It doesn't happen overnight. And so we're planting seeds.
Yeah, that's a good thing. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a blessing if you can get people who don't know Jesus, don't believe him, don't serve him, don't follow him, to watch and then to say, you know what, I'm going to make a decision for Christ myself. I mean, so I like the diversity of the lineup on Morning Light. I think it's wonderful.
Oh, thanks.
And the guests as well. I just think it's really a wonderful thing. And that's what I'm always thinking to myself. At the end of the day, what matters? It's what we do for Christ that matters.
It does. Right.
And it's not puffing ourselves up or glorifying ourselves, because we're only here but for a minute.
Very short. We don't measure success in terms of ratings and numbers. We represent success in terms of each life.
That's right.
If we can touch a life, that makes such a tremendous difference. That's an eternal difference.
Yeah. That's what I think really matters, and I love that about Lighthouse TV. I love that about Morning Light, and I'm sure it's been exciting for you to. You're a rarity, You're a unicorn. There aren't a lot of people who have your background, your expertise, and who've had the success that you've had, who are followers of Jesus and who really want to do stuff for the glory of God. You have people who want to do stuff for the glory of themselves and for another award, another Emmy, another.
That's what the world teaches, right?
Yeah, the world teaches you that that's what matters.
What matters to me is people, and being a voice for people, and also I think right now for us at Lighthouse, and for me personally, and as a Christian, just trying to find ways to encourage people in faith. People suffer in so many different ways. There's so much suffering, and suffering sometimes is very, very obvious if they're hungry or they're starving or they're being mistreated. But suffering is also, there's so much mental illness and things like that. And I wanted to share one thing that it's meant a lot to me. It's not from somebody that you might expect, but there was a great speech when I was a photographer and I was at a convention. I went to a number of political conventions and I saw a great speaker. I'll tell you who it is in a minute. And this person said, "Don't you surrender. Suffering breeds character. Character breeds faith. And in the end, faith will not disappoint."
Yeah.
That was 1988, Jesse Jackson. Wow. I went to both Republican and Democratic conventions, but I was just mesmerized by that speech. And I always think that the world sometimes, ultimately, they come around, you can't deny God's natural laws. And, when we go through trials and tribulations, it's all ultimately to build us and make us stronger and stronger in the faith that we can share that with others. And that's what I hope we can do.
Absolutely, brother. Absolutely. What beautifully said. Well, when we return, I'll ask Keith about his latest mission right here on Lighthouse TV as God uses him to write the next chapter of this station's extraordinary mission. Stay with us.
You're watching Joe Watkins' State of Independence on Lighthouse TV. Positively different. Share your comments about today's program in the comment box at joewatkins.org.
Well, Keith Blaisdell has become a fast friend since he retired from a distinguished career in TV news to help steward Lighthouse TV through some exciting opportunities. Most recently, the launch of the live daily morning program, Morning Light. Keith, what was the idea behind Morning Light? What message did you want the program to send?
Well, I'm blessed to work with Dan and Margaret Huber, who we say they're the stewards of the ministry. The Lord owns the ministry, but I met them and through a bunch of broadcast relationships and transmitters and towers and so forth and so on, and it became apparent that we shared a passion for this vision of taking things to the next level. And they asked me to do some consulting to help build a studio. We built one in Harrisburg. We thought Harrisburg would be a neat place for us to have another outcropping. We've got Philadelphia here, we've got Allentown, we've got Harrisburg, and we've got plans to do more things as time goes on. And the goal was really, I think, to provide a respite, a place where believers, and we hope non-believers at times will sample us, to come and to truly start the day with encouragement and start the day with faith, which flies in the face of what the world has to offer so many times. And so that was really the goal, was to do something very different. And we feel that is, hitting its stride. We're trying all sorts of different approaches, and we are able to tell amazing stories about ministries that are throughout Pennsylvania that are doing the Lord's work, that are the hand of Christ. And that was really the goal, to help people face the day with faith in a difficult and challenging world, to give them something that they can take with them. And when we expand the program to an hour, we'll give them even more of that. So, get their foot off at the right day. And your colleague and my colleague, Jeff Coleman, of course, is anchoring that with Deborah Pinkerton.
Yes.
And Jeff gives us a beautiful commentary as well. Each day we have an exciting panel of various people from different walks of life. Today we had someone that comes a little bit from the political and lobbying world, and we had someone that is a pastor from an urban church in Harrisburg, and we had a doctor from a suburban area, and just amazing how that all melds together to send a powerful message.
Yeah, that's a great thing. It's a wonderful thing. Tell us about your family.
I am blessed. I have a beautiful wife, Lori. We've been married 42 years, and I have two daughters, 33-year-old and 30-year-old, and my oldest daughter is about to make me a grandchild for the first time. So, and just blessed to have a family of believers that we can celebrate the joys together, and also sometimes the tough times together. So, yeah.
What would you say to a young person who's watching that wants to be you, that wants to head into the career that you've had, and wants to be able to make a difference? Somebody who's a believer, maybe, but they want to do what you're doing.
Well, the first thing is, I think, hit your knees and ask the Lord, where do you want me? Where do you want me to serve? The second thing, I think, is don't worry about the money. Don't worry about chasing financial success. If you let the Lord lead, He will bring amazing things to you. He did to me, He has to so many others that I know. And letting the Lord lead, just making sure that you follow your passion, and remember to be the hands of Christ, and to love others. And I think the Lord can provide an amazing path for anyone that wants to be in this business. And there's such a need.
Yeah, there's such a need. It's a great need. Well, Keith's career is a story in every way of God's grace. You heard that throughout this conversation tonight. I hope it was as encouraging to you as it was to me. We'll be right back to wrap it up with our great producer, Jeff Coleman. So stay with us.
Learn more about Joe Watkins and the mission of this program at joewatkins.net. And tell Joe what you thought about today's program in the comment box.
And now let's talk to our great producer, Jeff Coleman.
Well, Keith's story is the same, isn't it? I mean, the same as every other person who we've had on this program that surrenders their life to Christ. And his advice at the end is pretty potent, which is wherever God calls you, say yes. And don't ask about the benefit package and does it have a 401k? What about my parking? What's the long-term prospect of me succeeding here? And that is counter to everything any sane financial planner would tell you. Most parents don't tell you to follow that path. They say, well, what's it going to make? You're going to be able to provide for your family. What about your lifestyle? You're going to be able to put something away to have a nice little place someday. But the seek ye first piece of what Keith said, which was, wherever he puts you, stay, serve, love the person in front of you, engage fully. God takes care of the rest. And it isn't a promise that if you do good things, religious things, kind of Christian-y things, that there's a big reward in the end and you can unwrap it one day and it all pays off. Because that's not often the case for a lot of people. Yeah. With the path is filled, at least here on earth, suffering. Yeah. Suffering isn't wasted, the trial isn't wasted, but it's producing character, and it's ultimately producing you for a life beyond this one. Yeah. Yeah. Preparing you for that.
Yeah, no, I loved what he said. He read that quote from that speech he heard in 1988, and I just thought it was so beautiful because it's so very scripturally inspired, and I loved his advice also to people. You know, like you want to do what I'm doing. Yeah. First, hit your knees. Get on your knees first. Yeah. Seek the Lord's will for your life.
What he's saying is give up.
Yeah.
I mean, give up your sense of what do you want to be when you grow up.
Right.
And surrender that idea, and then replace it. Let God replace it with whatever He has for you. And as you know, and I know, from year to year, that can look very different. From day to day, that can look very different. Yeah. But that allows you to be fully present with whoever God puts on your path. Yeah. And then, when something as wild of an idea as Lighthouse TV comes along, really? A morning show? Or really? Let's look at the rest of this programming lineup and let's give people something all day that will provide a little respite, a little encouragement, a little hope. I mean, this is the lifeblood for a lot of people because it's their connection to community. Yeah. Hopefully it's just the start of their service.
How early does your day start at Lighthouse TV for Morning Light?
My wake up is between 5 and 5:15 to walk the dog and get my head together and pray. And then we start about 7:30 in the morning, so.
Very, very good.
Not too bad.
Yeah, that's not bad at all.
Yeah.
Not bad at all. Yeah. Well, Keith's story is not unique. It's a story of grace. It's what happens when a man or a woman says, "Here am I, send me." Maybe your daily life isn't in a newsroom, but it's not less important to the one who created you. Created you, by the way, with a purpose and a plan. Your life is no accident. Take a moment to drop me a line in the comment box at joewatkins.org. I'd love to hear how this program impacted you. And between now and when we may next meet, stay encouraged. Trust God. Believe in His promises because He never fails. From America's very first capital, Philadelphia, I'm Joe Watkins. For Jeff Coleman and the entire team behind the cameras at Lighthouse TV, thanks so much for watching. God willing, I'll see you next time. I loved having Keith from behind the cameras in front of the camera.
That's what he looks like.
Yeah.
Who is this guy behind
That's the mastermind.
Joe Watkins' State of Independence is a production of Lighthouse TV, positively different. Made possible in part because of the support of viewers like you.